What is going on, everybody? Donnie Rouse here, and today I have a special moment for you, and it's around taking advantage or taking action on those ambitions that you have, but maybe you're just too afraid to take action on. This one is called Now or Never. And when you think about it, when is there ever a good time to start that new career, to ask the one that you're interested on a date, or to take that trip? When is there ever a good time? If you were to ask yourself that question, likely you are going to find a million reasons as to why now is not the right time, and then what happens next. You delay, you put it out, and pretty soon you've put it out so far. One, you either lose the feeling of it, or two, you've then built up so much fear that taking the action seems even bigger rather than just taking the opportunity as it was arising. So this episode here, or this podcast episode, is related to a conversation I had with a person in line at Costco. I was in line at Costco, and surprisingly, there weren't that many people here at that time. But there was one gentleman in front of me, and he looked very Italian. His accent he had an Italian accent. And when I looked in his card, he had 2 things of olive oil. I was like, this guy is Italian. He was asking one of the cashiers just to check the price to see which one was the more expensive between the two. He had a Costco brand and he had another brand from Tunisia. So watching this entire exchange go down, and then he was like, oh, maybe I'll just go to the Costco. I chimed in, haven't had experience with that one. I was like, I don't know if you want to do that one. Go with the Tunisian one. And he's like, well, why should I do that one? Well, I was like, because a friend of mine has it. It turns out it was the wrong brand. My friend does not have that brand. But anyways, I did have experience with the Costco olive oil, and it was very, very thin. If you like olive oil, thin olive oil is probably the biggest turnoff, at least for us Italians. So I advised him, and I said I would go with that one. As he rang them up, turns out the one I suggested was the less expensive of the two. So he's like, all right, done. I'm going with this one. I said, why didn't you ever take that trip? And he looked back and he thought about it. He said, well, it just wasn't a good time. There was a lot going on in that region. And, he named off a bunch of different events. He's like, well, there was the 9/11, and then there was the Iraq War. And he just kept piling on reasons as to why it wasn't a good time for him to take the trip. But the magic happened after he had said all of these reasons why it wasn't the right time. He followed up with that. He said, well, I regret it. When is there ever a good time? And I said, yes, that is it. When is there ever a good time? See, if we're waiting for the perfect time, we're never going to find it because there is no perfect time. I can tell you from all of my trips, literally every single one I've ever taken, that there was never the perfect time. Every time I would book a trip, I'm like, oh my God, how am I going to get away? It seemed like my business would pick up or certain things would happen right when I pressed that button to buy that ticket. But there's never been a time where I have come back and I'm like, you know what? I wish I didn't go. Never, right? And that's really what it is with life. And I want to reframe this because fear is ultimately what it's called. Fear is what's driving it. But I have a new definition of fear that I wanted to share with you, one that I think is very, very powerful. And one of my mentors said that fear is just a poor use of your imagination. So what does that mean? It means that you are imagining situations, circumstances, things that are less than favorable and going wrong. And as a result of that, it just builds up. You start to ruminate on that and you start to build it up. And all of a sudden there's no way in hell you are ever going to make a move towards that ambition. So I have a few questions for you that I want just to help you. Maybe, there's a desire that you have. If you have, just mentally think about that right now. What is something that you want to move towards, an ambition that you have? Maybe, as I mentioned in the beginning, maybe it's asking somebody out on a date. Maybe it is moving to a different city. Maybe it is starting your business. Maybe it is taking that big trip. What is an ambition you have? What has gotten in the way of you making that trip? Let me kind of piggyback on that question. What imagery have you been creating in your mind as to what it would be, what the outcome would be? And that likely it's not going to be a positive outcome that you're fantasizing about, and that's why you haven't taken the action. Question 3 is, how much of that are you actually certain about and making up in your mind? And if you're honest with yourself, most of it, right? Let's be honest. Most of it is in your head. And to prove it, think about all those times. I'm sure you could find at least one, if not a million, that you were fantasizing about something going wrong or somebody thinking something, and then you turn out that you were wrong. You were building this story up in your head, only to realize you went through all this stress, all this anxiety for absolutely nothing. Right? So let's now switch the frame. Let's say, okay, well, what is the desire we have? And let's imagine, what is the experience you want to have? Like, what would it feel like to go on that experience? And what would you tell yourself present day after having that experience, who's experienced the worry, the doubt that you are experiencing right now? What would you tell them? I'm willing to bet that you would tell them, just go freaking do it. It's going to be a blast. You're going to come back a new person, whatever it is. I know that your future self is going to give you some positive words to go to encouragement to go get it. So that's my lesson for you guys today. And the reason I brought this one up is because I'm actually booking a trip. I'm looking at a trip to Israel and Jordan. And I've been apprehensive. I'm like, oh my God, is it really a good time? I don't know. Should I go? I've been thinking about this for the last week, but been seesawing on it just because I'm like, well, stability over there. But when is there a good time? And that was the kind of the golden nugget my friend in the Costco line gave me. So stay tuned. I have there's 2 possible trips I'm looking at. So I'm going to book one of them. Not really sure which one, but stay tuned. I will bring you more on that, but take the action, do this, write down the steps I told you about. What is the decision you are waiting on that you want to make, but you've been fearful? How much of that fear is in your head? And how you know that is, what imagery are you putting in your head? And how much are you absolute certain? When you realize that, most of it is just made up and you're not really certain about any of the outcomes because there's no way for you to be, right? I'm a shitty fortune teller, and I know if I'm a fortune teller, you have to be at least slightly, maybe even better than me. But realizing that, and then look to the future, look to what you're going to experience, and then allow your future self to give you the feedback, the guidance, the encouragement to take the next action. So I hope you enjoyed this episode here. If you did, please hit that subscribe button. And remember, you only get one life. Live fully, live passionately, and most of all, live now. God bless you guys, and I will see you in the next episode.